Today we are talking about delegation. Delegation as a means of scaling your business and allowing others to pick up what you cannot. Okay. And so I'm going to pull up my notes here. I have them in a couple of different places. We are going to be talking about releasing control, training for excellence, and checking for understanding, all those things. We're going to be covering two core pieces in this lesson today. The first one is going to be the mindset aspect, releasing control. The second one is going to be tangible tools that you can use to ensure that the people that you are delegating to are performing at a level of excellence that you yourself would be performing to. Okay. Because that's what I hear the most often, right? I don't want to release control because nobody can do it like I can do it. I had a client yesterday tell me that she struggles because she feels that the venue that she has created a really strong relationship with, that they expect her to be at every event. That's not how businesses work, right? You don't expect Steve Jobs to show up every time you buy a new iPhone, right? And it's the same. If your business is going to grow, you have to release control and other people have to be able to do these things for you. So, without further ado, let's dive in. I'm going to be reading some of the notes that I have here. So, if you see me like sort of robotic, it's because I'm reading. But I wanted to make sure that I got some really pivotal keys to you guys, and I don't want to miss anything. So, that's why you'll hear me reading and you'll see me taking notes as things come up to keep me on track, so that you guys get the most amount of value out of this lesson. All right. So I have here, if you want to scale to multiple events in a single day, you have to come to terms with a single fact. You cannot be in more than one place at one time. You just cannot. You cannot do it. And so you don't have time to be the CEO of a multi six-figure business if you're attempting to control every event by tackling it yourself. This website, unbridlingyourbrilliance.com, says another control related reason that leaders choose not to delegate is the perceived time and effort needed to train an employee or bring them up to speed. It seems too inconvenient or too remedial for someone at their level to do. It feels too much like a sacrifice of control. Leaders who can de emphasize their sense of control and turn their attention to solving problems resist delegating less. Here's the thing, Dawn, what if something goes wrong? I have to be at this event because what if something goes wrong? Here's the truth, it's going to go wrong. Something is going to go wrong. It's not about what if it goes wrong. It's about how am I going to respond when it goes wrong? Okay, when it goes wrong. This is the essence of releasing control. You're not preventing things from going wrong because you're there. Things are still going wrong. Your leadership is best utilized in creating other leaders and giving responsibility to those around you so that they can help you grow the business in the way that you visualize in your mind, because otherwise you're not going to get there. And so it is going to take you time to train them. It is going to take effort to train them. No, they may not do it exactly how you do it, but that's okay because we're all unique. We're all different. And we're going to talk about making sure that the right person is on the right task coming up. But for now, what I want you to know is it is going to take time for you to train. They might not do it to your expectation, but that does not mean that they can't be great. And it doesn't mean that you can't give up that control factor so that you can grow your business. So, as far as the mindset goes, you have to be just willing to release it. You have to be willing to release control. If you're constantly saying to yourself, like, I'm a control freak, I could never give it up, such is your world. Okay. You're going to be constantly creating that in your world. And so, what I need you to do is to stop referring to yourself as a control freak. Start referring to yourself as an excellent leader, as a wonderful teacher. You're like, Dawn, I'm not a good teacher. It doesn't matter. Lie to yourself. All the people who have heard me do webinars are like, lie to myself. Dawn, you tell me never lie to myself. Yes, you're right. Don't lie to yourself. But in this instance, we want to tell the lie. And the reason is because your unconscious believes everything that it's told. And if you're constantly saying, I'm a control freak, I have to be the one to do it, no one can do it like I do it, then you're reinforcing that belief. And that's why you feel anxiety in your body when you have to release control. It's why you feel like regret or fear or worry whenever you're not at an event and somebody else has to handle it. Okay. We want to tell ourselves the lie. I am a wonderful leader. I am a wonderful teacher. I communicate effectively and I have the tools necessary to lead a fantastic team. And I want you to tell yourself that until you believe it. Until you believe it. All right. So, as far as the mindset stuff goes, guys, that's the first part of this. And it's really just that. It's everything I've just said. It's really brief, really easy. Tell yourself the lie, shift your focus, stop calling yourself a control freak, start practicing releasing control in small bits. This can be anything. It can be around your house. If you find that because you're a control freak, that you like need the dishes to be put a certain way. Like for me, it's the towels. I like the towels folded a certain way. Okay. If I was struggling with control, I would actively be practicing letting my husband just fold the towels willy-nilly. He folds them however he wants to. If I was a control freak, that would bother me, which I do love the towels folded a certain way, but I've done the work and it no longer bothers me if this towel's facing the opposite direction or if it's folded in fourths and not in thirds, like whatever, right? Release control in the smallest areas of your life. And what you'll see is that that pattern then grows. It becomes amplified in your life and you can start releasing control in larger areas. The other key piece here is that you're never going to be ready. It's never going to feel good. You're never going to release control and you're going to be like, oh, this just feels amazing. I just want to keep doing more of this. No, when you release control, it feels like anxiety. It feels like fear. It feels like overwhelm. It feels like potentially you're going to be letting someone down. Okay. None of those things are true. They're just stories that you're telling yourself. So let's take some deep breaths. I am a good leader. I have all the tools that I need to run a fantastic team. I have the time and energy and resources. I have my hands on my chest. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is wonderful for anxiety. Put your hands on your chest. I have the time, the energy, and the resources to train an incredible staff. I believe in my staff. The perfect people find their way to me. Okay. Tell yourself the thing. Relax. Let it go. Let it go. Okay. That's the second key piece here. We want to be releasing control in small bits. And when it comes up and we're like, I gotta, what if I did? Release it. Release it. It's going to be fine. Even if something goes wrong, it'll be fine. Okay. There's no mindset trick here other than to just lie to yourself. That's the only mindset trick that I have for this particular thing. Okay. That's the first portion of this. Now I'm going to give you tangible tools. This has been tried, true, and tested. Okay. I used this for over 10 years in my career as a district manager trainer for a large retail company. I had over 100 stores. I had well over 100 employees, probably well over 300 employees. These women were phenomenal women and men. There were a few men in there too. Were phenomenal. Okay. And every area that I went, I managed in Virginia. I managed in South Carolina. I managed in North Carolina. I managed a little in West Virginia. Every area that I went to, we implemented these tools to delegate, and the store managers were floored. They were floored. And the reason is because the store manager felt they had to be the one that was doing all the planner guides. And for those of you who don't have retail experience, that's just like when you go into a store and you see a display. Okay, that's called a planner guide. Like they had to be the ones to do the planner guides, to do the displays. They had to be the ones to do the pricing. They had to be the ones to do the paperwork in the morning, right? And so I would come into these stores and the paperwork would be just all over the place because the store manager was off and none of the employees knew how to do the paperwork. It was because the store managers were not realizing that yes, it takes time to train someone to do these things. But once you take that time, a few things happen. One, you no longer have to do them. You no longer have to do them. Can we get an amen for you no longer have to do them? Two, you have now instilled a sense of ownership, responsibility, and loyalty into an employee. Okay. Because they have ownership of something that they can do, that they feel good at. Now they're more adept. Okay. Because part of the problem was that this paperwork in the morning gave us a full recount of all the sales, all the KPIs of the day before. We also got one monthly that gave us the month before. And because the store managers were not teaching their associates to do the paperwork or to understand the paperwork, the associates had no skin in the game when it came to what their monthly numbers were because they didn't even understand how to work them, how to read them, and project better numbers for the future. And so, what I would do is I would come in and I would teach them these tools to have them implement so that they could train, get all of their associates. And I want all of them. I don't care if this associate works 10 hours a month for you. They need to know how to do everything that you do. Everything that I do, not everything that you do. Okay. Because here's the other thing. If you're hit by a bus tomorrow morning, what happens to your business? Are you the bottleneck? Does it go under? Can you continue making six figures, multiple six figures, if you're not there to run the events, if you're not there to do the paperwork? For those of you who are considering hiring a GM, or maybe you already have hired a GM and it's just a freaking train wreck, this is going to be key for you. This is going to be pivotal for you. Okay. And then they're really simple. When you hear these, you're going to be like, oh my God, like what? But like, this is leadership 101. I promise you it works. I was able to flip districts. I won awards for flipping districts because I was just really good at that. Like I was able to flip districts from being underperforming, some of them for 10 years or more, underperforming for their KPIs, for their monthly goals, and have them transformed into knockout districts that like were just top of the line every single month. And it was by using these tools because they work. My mentor, way back in the day, my mentor, she taught me these tools. They were how she ran her district. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Okay. And they're very simple. The first one, you want to be checking in regularly, offering support and feedback. So, what this looks like is when you train someone to do something, you don't show them once and then expect that they have it down because that sets them up for failure and you up for frustration. And then, like, you can see there's no good things that come out of this person failing and this person being frustrated. So, we want to create a sense of ownership and quick wins, like a reward system. I recently bought a dog, first dog I've ever owned, and I had to train her. And when you're training positively, they're like, don't let them fail. I'm like, okay. So, if you tell her sit and she doesn't sit, the next sit you show her what you want with sit, right? And then you give her the treat. So like she associates, oh, I do this thing and I get a treat. And then before you know it, you can just give the command and then she does the thing. Similarly, with our employees, we want to be giving treats often. We want to be giving reward often. We want to give support and feedback. We want to constantly be letting them know, I'm here for you. What can I do for you? Do you understand? So we're going to be checking in regularly and often. Okay. We're going to be offering support and feedback. When it comes to onboarding, it has to be in depth. It has to be in depth. Did you guys hear that? It has to be in depth. If you bring someone on and have them do the bare minimum, they will give you the bare minimum. Okay. I've trained a lot of people in my days, guys. They will give you the bare minimum. If you give them in depth, in the moment, experience, knowledge, insight, right? Which is tell them why, show and tell. Tell them why. Why do we do what we do? Then it's again breeding that sense of ownership where they're like, okay, I can take this on. This feels good. And then they're more responsible, able to respond, responsible. They're more responsible because they feel like they own part of that business. It matters to them. So we're going to be in-depth onboarding on the front end. If you don't have an onboarding system, build the plane in flight. That's fine. Your associates, whoever you're hiring, your bartenders, your GM, your assistant, Or if you're hiring like online, virtual assistants, whatever, they're not going to care if you have a system in place or not. If you're giving them step by step, this is what I do and this is what I need from you. And if you're checking for understanding frequently, this is the other key piece. This is a powerful tool. When I tell you what I need you to do, and I've explained it very well, I think I've explained it very well. I may not have explained it very well. I have been in this business for X amount of years. And so for me, I don't think to tell you that you have to wipe down the shelves before you put new product on the shelf. Like that's just second nature to me. So I skip saying that to you. And then so when I come back and you've put new product on the shelf and the shelves are dirty, whose fault? Well, they should think the way no, 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 no. People don't think the way you think. Okay. And so we want to be checking for understanding frequently. The best way to do this is to tell them what I want you to do. I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to ask you to repeat it back to me. So this looks like if we were building a display, then I'm going to show you how to build a display. We're going to do it together. I'm not going to do it and you just watch. We're going to do it together. You're going to participate. I'm going to be passing on all my wisdom as we do this. And then when we're all done, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions, or in the middle, I'm going to ask you if we have any questions. When we're done and the time comes that you're going to set your own display, I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to do. Now, well, Dawn, we already did it. We did it together. She should know what to do. No, 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 no. You cannot over explain. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what I need you to do. And then I want you to repeat it back to me. People think that sounds condescending. Your employees, no matter who they are, online, virtual, in person, GMs, they will appreciate this. You're not saying, like, okay, I said this, now you say it back to me. It looks like this. Susie Q, I need you to take all the old product off. I need you to wash the shelves. I need you to take all the pricing tags down and then put the new pricing tags up before you put the product on the shelf so that we can move the pricing tags in accordance with the products. Susie Q, do you understand? Yeah, Dawn, I think I understand. Okay, tell me what I need you to do. And Susie Q is going to say to me, okay, you want me to take all the product off the shelf, and then you want me to take the pricing labels down. Then you want me to put the new pricing labels up before I put the product up. And I'm going to say, awesome. You're missing cleaning the shelves in between. Okay. And so that's me setting expectations. It's me setting the standard and letting them know what it is I need for them. It's also letting me know what did they miss or what did they misunderstand. And so we want to check for understanding and we want to have them repeat it back to us. So we're going to show and tell. We're going to give them all the whys. All right. If I don't understand why I have to put the price tags up before I put the product on the shelf, then I might put the product on the shelf first because I don't understand why it matters that I do it the opposite direction. And so then you're going to be saving them time and effort. Now, sometimes they're going to fail. And that's okay. That's also a teaching moment. That's the other thing, guys. If somebody fails for you, it's a glorious moment. It is. You can start seeing it as beautiful. Somebody fails, they forget to bring ice. Delicious. We love that. They'll never forget that again. You don't have to be like a raging like boss. Ah, you forgot. You don't have to do that. We made a mistake. Awesome. You watch the bar. I'll go get the ice. They'll never do that again. We also want to be calm and consistent. That's important. This ensures that our employees know what to expect from us. We don't want to be reactive. If you're reactive, you've got some mindset work that needs to be done. You're in a wonderful place for that. You have me as a resource. Sarah is also a phenomenal resource for mindset work. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be able to respond. This gives our associates the feeling of peace. It makes them feel like they can trust us. It makes them feel like they can come to us when something goes wrong. So that's really important. We remain calm and consistent. Make sure that when you're showing and telling, that you're doing it with them until you're confident enough to let them attempt it alone. And here's what I mean. I say alone with quotation marks for those of you who are listening and not watching. I say alone with quotation marks, okay? Because they're not actually going to be doing it alone. They're going to be doing it without your constant supervision. All right. And that means you're going to be checking in with them frequently. Again, check for understanding, check in, offer support and feedback. You're going to keep coming back. Okay. 20 minutes in, come check. Because what would suck the most is if they were an hour and a half into an event and you come in and you say, why aren't you putting lime on garnishes on the edge? Why aren't you putting lime wedges on the edge? Now you have all these people without lime wedges. Obviously, I'm not a mobile bartender because it took me a minute. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to use it as an example for this. But then they've done it wrong all this time, and you come in and correct them. That's frustrating for them, and it feels like a deep failure. Whereas you give them 10 minutes alone, and then you come back and check. And then maybe you space it and you give them 30 minutes and you come back and check. And then you give them an hour and a half and you come back and check. And then you can give them a whole 3 hour event. Then you can give them a 6 hour event. Then you can start letting them come and pick up the rig. Like all these different things, right? All these moving pieces. These are my 4 favorite questions for offering support. These 4 questions are going to reveal so much for both you and your employee, whoever that is. It's also going to create again that sense of ownership for them, right? When we own something, we want to do it well. That's what I want you to understand here. When we have ownership, a sense of ownership of something, it matters to us that it's done effectively, that it's done adequately, and that it's done to a certain standard. So we want them to own the task. These 4 questions are going to help them own that task. It's actually 2 questions and 2 statements. I'm going to go back to the example that I know most intimately, which is retail, and we're building a display. You're going to ask them these questions and make these statements. And then you can come back in the next 30 minutes and do it again. But then also, you want to be doing this frequently. So if you have them run an entire event by themselves, you want to be asking these questions and making these statements. There's 4 of them. The first one is, what do you think you did well? What do you think you did well? And let them tell you, because now you know what it is that they have a sense of pride over. That's good for you because you don't want to come in throwing bows. Like you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. Nobody learns that way. That doesn't feel good. We're adults here. Okay. What do you think you did well? After they answer, and you give them time to answer and you really listen, you say, here's what I think you did well. And then you compliment their work. Now you guys have created like a camaraderie over the pride. This is what I love about what you've done. So now they've got a quick win. They got your support. They know that you got their back. They know that you care about their opinion of their work. And you say, the next question, what do you think you could have done better? And then you listen. Leadership is listening. Leadership is listening. What do you think you could have done better? And then we let them tell us where they think they could improve. And then we're going to make the final statement. Here's what I think you could have done better. Okay. But now we didn't come in and we're like, you did all this wrong. We're throwing bows. People are offended. People are quitting. There's dysfunction in the relationship. None of that. We're avoiding all of that because what we've done is we've given them ownership. We've listened to them. We care what they're saying. And now I'm giving them feedback. And they're open to that feedback because I've been open to listening to them tell me what they loved about their work and what they feel like they could have improved on in their work. Here's what I think you could have done better. It's 4 things. It'll change the way you lead for the rest of your life. I know because I remember when my mentor told me about this and I implemented it and my team skyrocketed. It was phenomenal. Okay. Here's the other piece. Make sure that you have the right person for the task on the task. I'm going to use myself as an example for this. Sarah knows that I hate back end website work. I hate it. Words are what I'm good at. She has me write the emails because I love that. I'm good at it. That's where I thrive. Our emails do really well. Okay. If I had to go and like create a page, a landing page for like a thing, like I can do that. I don't like to do that. And because I don't like it, because it's not like part of my flow, there's like this like kink thing that happens, like, like that doesn't feel good. Like this looks terrible. That's all coded wrong. Okay. it becomes a mess because that's not my zone of genius. So it's important when you're hiring, whether it's a VA or an assistant or a GM, or you're hiring bartenders, that their zone of genius, what they're inherently really good at, what they're inherently passionate about, is taken into consideration. Because if it's not, you set those people up for failure. There's a misalignment, especially like when you're hiring VAs, because VAs do so many different things. So if you need a VA to handle setting your calls, right? And maybe sales, setting and sales. And you just go out and find a VA company and you hire them without doing this work. And they come in and they're like, okay, I'm really great at writing emails and I'm really great at um, social media content. That's not what I needed. And then there's like this crazy, right? Like, can you do sales? Can you do? And so you have to be asking those questions up front. This goes into hiring, which I think I'll do another lesson on. If you guys love this, I'll do a lesson on hiring and some of my best practices for hiring. We might even interview some of the top dogs in the industry. That would be wonderful, on how they hire, some of the questions that they like to ask. Make sure you have the right person for the job on the job. Because if not, you set them up for failure. Whose fault is that? Yours, mine, the leaders. I have here skill versus will. And you can have a person who does not know the first thing about, this is me. This is me. I'm a great example. I don't know the first thing about mobile bars. I have no idea. I've never ran one. I've never been in one. I've never seen one with my own two eyes that wasn't on the internet. Okay. I have no idea about mobile bars. I have zero skill in this. I have a phenomenal will in this because I want to learn. Teach me, show me your tap trucks, tell me how they work. What is a jockey box? Like, I want to learn. I'm constantly, I remember the first time I Googled Ape and like it was showing me pictures of apes because my phone was like, this isn't a thing that we usually show, you know? Like, and so, but I wanted to learn and I have to be willing to be an idiot and ask questions to learn. And I am. When it comes to mobile bars, I don't know. I don't know. Teach me. But I have high will, which means I'm willing to learn. It's okay to hire low skill, high will. However, if you need a flair bartender and they have no skill and high will, but you have an event tomorrow, probably not a good idea. Probably know there's going to be mixer everywhere. Okay. Probably not a good idea. There, you need high skill. You also probably need high will because here's the other thing. You can have someone who has high skill and low will. Now, I had tenured store managers that worked for me that were incredibly skilled at what they did. They knew their business inside and out. These phenomenal women, okay? They had lost the will. Their store started to fall apart. Their staff was like, it was like walking into a gray cloud every time you went into their store. And when you look at why, it's because they've lost the will. Now, will is not something that you can necessarily do anything about. Sometimes a lack of will has meant that I have to let that person go because it's best for both of us. You're no longer happy here. You no longer want to do this. You don't have the drive to do this. You know how, but you don't want to. Sometimes that means we have to part ways. Now, I happen to be a phenomenal motivator. That's just one of the things that I'm really good at. I can motivate people, I can inspire people. And so sometimes that's what needs to happen. There needs to be a reigniting, something that gets them excited again. And that can be a conversation. These are all conversations that you should be having. And I don't even like the word should, but you should be having these conversations with your associates, whoever they are, GMs, whatever. How can we bring excitement for you? What makes you excited? What are you passionate about? Right? If you have someone who's been with you for a long time and you notice that their performance is dwindling, even though you know they're well trained in what they do, it's a great conversation to have. Hey, I see you're really great at what you do, but lately your performance has been lackluster. Can you tell me what's going on? Can you tell me why that's happening? I want to support you. Is there any way I can support you? Right? These are honest conversations that your employees will be shocked over. Like your employees will be like, she cares. He cares. They care about what I'm doing. So skill versus will. That's another key piece here to keep in mind as we're delegating tasks or potentially entire events. Two-way communication. It's two-way communication. You have to be listening to your associates, listening to the people who support you. You have to be asking them, "Where are you struggling?" They might not even know, right, until you bring it up. You said, "Where are you struggling? Where do you need more help? Where do you need more guidance? Where do you need more support from me? How can I support you better?" Okay. These are wonderful conversation starters that get people also talking back to you. It gets them open, it breeds trust, which we're going to talk about. That's this last piece here. It might be the last piece. I have notes after this, but it looks like the last piece. Follow through. Follow through. Guys, follow through. This is trust or bust. If you don't follow through, if you're not consistent, if you don't show up when you say you're going to show up, if you show up late to an event, you're setting the expect everything that you do, you're setting the bar. You're setting the bar. Teehee. You're setting the expectation for your associates, for your people, for your VAs. Okay. If you're scatterbrained, if you lose stuff and forget things, if you're constantly on your phone when you don't want others to be on their phone, that's the other piece here. You have to be the model employee. If you're not your own model employee, don't expect other people to show up that way for you. You have to follow through on your word, which means when you say, "I'm going to train you to back the rig in," you train them to back the, don't let that fly, because if you do, then that's you not being in alignment with your word. And that creates distrust. Even if you're like, "Oh, this is my cousin that works for me and she's, she gets me. We grew up together." Like, yeah, and she probably knows that you don't stick to what you say you're going to stick to. Okay? And that creates tension in the relationship. It creates chaos. I've seen stores with phenomenal potential not meet their potential because the store manager had no follow through. And so what would happen is they would say like, "I'm going to give you a corrective action the next time that you do that." And the next time they did it, they would say, "I'm going to give you a corrective action the next time you do that." And the next time they would do it, they would say, "Now, Susie Q, we talked about this. And if you do it again, I'm going to have to give you a corrective action." You know what's happening here? Susie Q has realized, whether consciously or unconsciously, that you don't mean what you say. You're not actually going to deliver that write up. Follow through. Follow through. Follow through on positive things, follow through on negative or on areas that can be improved on, follow through on it. Do not say you're going to do something if you don't mean it. Sometimes that means you have to say less. All right. Sometimes it means you have to catch yourself talking smack when you don't really mean what you're saying. Sometimes it means that you actually need to do the thing that you say you're going to do. Follow through. Trust or bust. I promise. Makes a big difference because the morale of your employees, the morale of the people who work for you are reliant on how you show up. You set the stage, you set the morale, you set the tone. So follow through. Negative feedback. Negative feedback does not need to suck. You don't even have to look at it as negative. Let's say you have someone who's not performing to your standard and you need to have a conversation with them. First of all, you are not going to have that conversation while you're worked up. If something happens, they drop the ball and now a client is upset, you are not going to get off the phone with that client heated and immediately call your employee, because you're going to say things that you don't mean, which we just learned about how detrimental that can be. You're going to be speaking from pure emotion and it's not going to come off clean. You're also not going to get to the point, to the root of the issue, to the heart of the problem. And so give yourself some space. When you're calm, cool, and collected, you want to approach the associate and you want to ask where the breakdown came in. Tell them what happened. Don't assume. Tell them what the client said. Let them tell you their part of the story. And then honor both. Honor them both. They don't have to be exclusive from one another. Okay. I see you're saying you did show up on time, but that you had to move the rig twice. And see, this client is saying that she already told you where she wanted the rig and that you were late. Those two things are the same. They're the same story. They're just being told a little differently. Okay. And we're not going to punish. Good leadership, we never punish. We want to correct. That's all we want to do. We want to correct the action. We want to say, all right, so tell me next time and get their feedback, right? Next time, how can we better prepare so that you do know where the client expects the rig the first time? And maybe they don't know. Then you offer support. We offer support. Do you see how wonderful this feels? You're not here to be the boss or like do, you're not here for any of that. It's not a show. You're here to create a relationship with someone that is based on communication. It's based on trust. It's based on consistency. It's based on follow through, integrity. Leadership will teach you how to be a better person. I believe that. It taught me how to be a better person for sure. Feedback isn't personal. We're not going to attack them for like whatever's going on. It doesn't have to suck and it doesn't have to be personal. It's just about the job and how can I support you so that it's better next time. Anytime there's a breakdown in communication, that's something to look at. So if there's like a tense feeling in the room, I've seen this a lot. I've gone into stores and there's an associate that's opened. I come in, I'm hanging out, I'm checking out like audit stuff. And here comes the store manager. And all of a sudden there's this weird vibe in the room. And then that associate wants to take break immediately. I'm going to sit down with each of them individually. I'm going to say, hey, I felt a weird vibe. Tell me about this. All right. And I love mediation. It's one of my favorite things to do. Sit down and say, I felt it. And I get the story of both. And then I ask both, is it okay if I bring you guys together and we can talk about this so that it can be resolved? 99% of the time, they're going to say yes. And there's a reason because people want to perform well. People want to do well. Nobody goes to work and they're like, I'm just going to suck at this. I'm just going to, if they do, because we're seeing that a lot right now. Quiet quitting, I think is what it's called. People are going to work and they're like, I'm just going to suck at this. That's because their managers or their leaders are not giving them incentive to show up. They're not creating ownership. They're not training them properly. They're not listening to what their employees, they're not accepting feedback because feedback is a two-way street, right? I'm going to give you feedback, but I also want your feedback. Well, Dawn, I'm the boss. Things go the way I want to go. That's sticky. I used to invite my store managers one by one or our associates, their associates. I would go to a store and I would sit down with the store manager. We would align and I asked them, do you have any feedback for me? How can I do better for you? What do you need from me? What are you seeing in my performance? And sometimes I would hear store managers and they would say, well, Dawn, you said you were going to get me that raise and I haven't seen it yet. And I'd say, oh my gosh, you know what? I wrote that down and I forgot all about it. And I'm so very sorry for that. I'm going to do that right now. And I would take care of it. It's okay to say that I'm wrong. It's okay if there is a breakdown in communication and I didn't follow through, but I have to own that. And it's important that my associates, my employees, my people, my team, that they see that I'm willing to own my own mistakes. People want to perform well. And if you give them a reason to show up every day, they will follow you to the ends of the earth. Remember that. People want to do well. And if they're not doing well, what can you do better so that they can do more, so they can succeed? That's what leadership is about. Leadership for me has never been about creating followers. Leadership for me is about creating more leaders. When I was a store manager, I was a star trainer. And what that means is I would train other store managers. My employees, my associates would go from part-time to having their own stores because I created more leaders. And as a district manager, many of my store managers went on to become district managers. And I became a district manager trainer. And I trained those people to then go on and take their own districts. Because it's just like Sarah says, right? I think that's the camp slogan. Who's excited for camp this year? I think that's the camp slogan, community over competition. I wanted them to do well. If you can train somebody so wonderfully within your business that they want to then go out and start their own mobile bar business, you are winning. You didn't lose anything. You are winning. Leaders create more leaders. That's what we want to do here. So guys, that's been delegation. Don't forget you have the option to drop comments or questions and ask me all your questions. Let me know if this is something that you want more of, if this was powerful for you. Let me know if there's anything I could have done better, if there was anything that you wanted to see more of or hear more about. And I will be in touch in the comments, or Sarah will be in touch in the comments. Let us know what you think. Give us your feedback. We love that. And I look forward to seeing you all again in the next lesson.